Today, we're going to explore a mind-blowing true story that will take us on a journey through the gritty underworld of international drug trafficking. From the streets of Amsterdam to the sun-drenched beaches of Marbella, we will follow Scarface's trail as he built an empire worth billions, smuggling tons of cocaine through major ports like Antwerp and Rotterdam. This is the story of a drug lord who managed to amass billions through the underworld trade by the age of 23. Samir Bouyakhrichan, also known as Scarface, was born in Nador, Morocco on April 22, 1980, and moved to the Netherlands when he was just a baby. During the 70s and 80s, many migrants moved to the Netherlands, and Samir's parents were among them. They shared an apartment in the residential block across the Slotervaart Hospital with 7 people. Samir had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. He always spent a lot of time with his brothers and enjoyed spending time at the squares near the Confectia Centrum and around the Auguste Alebeplein. He was a good student and attended the Van Vitae Lyceum in Amsterdam South. He attended this school from 1986 to 1994, however. Even though he was good at studying, school didn't catch his interest. He loved stealing mopeds or getting into fights with other troublemakers. He even declared his own spot in the Escape nightclub. When others came into that spot, he told them to leave, and surprisingly, it worked, because he didn't mind throwing a few punches if needed. During a nightclub brawl, his opponent seized a glass and smashed it into Samir's face. The outcome was a scar near his right eye that never faded. It ensured he had a nickname for the rest of his life, a nickname with significance. Just like Al Capone and Tony Montana, he was called Scarface from then on. Women were not put off by his image. In fact, he was seen as the charismatic, exemplary son-in-law, a handsome man always accompanied by the most beautiful women, possessing the most luxurious possessions, and exceedingly generous. He told them he planned to make history. How? He left that part out. Yet everyone he hung out with knew he didn't earn his money entirely the right way. It was jokingly said that he was so naughty that he probably wouldn't live to be old. Sorry to interrupt, but to grow our channel, we would really appreciate if you could subscribe to our channel and leave a like and comment. That would really help us a lot. Thanks. Samir had already committed to a criminal lifestyle. Gradually, he established his network and became friends with prominent figures in the Amsterdam underworld. When these prominent figures got arrested and imprisoned, he, in agreement, assumed control of their drug operations. He had a talent for business, made connections in South America, and emerged as a progressively influential figure in the global drug trade. He also didn't hesitate to be ruthless when necessary. Despite his rapid rise, he remained relatively unnoticed for a long time. In police records, he was only registered for minor offenses, such as driving under influence. But that changed when, on April 4, 2003, he was linked to the murder of Jemmy Nocento, who was shot dead on a porch in the Dortsalaan, Rotterdam. The probe revealed an involvement with 1,100 kilos of cocaine. Samir was implicated in this attack because following the murder, he was the one who went to Colombia and informed the cartel responsible for the shipment that he would sell it for them now that their original contact person was gone. Somehow, he managed to persuade them to agree, and suddenly he became one of the major players. Upon his return, he was detained by Dutch authorities. However, due to insufficient evidence, he was released and the case was closed. Being handsome, wealthy, and possessing all material desires was one thing, but Samir lacked street credibility and got no respect from his counterparts. His group had money but lacked influence. He often displayed arrogance, and while many admired him, the influential figures saw through his weakness, and he sensed it. This changed with his friendship with Ali Agun, whom he met in Amsterdam. The two formed a strong bond and became partners. This greatly enhanced Samir's street credibility. In 2008, he relocated to Marbella, Spain, in the shadow of the Irish Costa Cartel and his Amsterdam friends. Samir was reportedly an ally of the Kinahan clan from Ireland, led by Daniel and Christopher Kinahan. In Marbella, he ventured into real estate. With his initial wealth, he purchased a luxury villa and deregistered from Amsterdam's municipal administration to maintain a low profile. He was extremely discreet. He avoided sharing any photos of himself on social media and never indulged in taking selfies. At just 23 years old, he possessed a net worth estimated at €500 million, primarily invested in Dubai. In the United Arab Emirates, he had big shares in an oil company. He also had investments in Spanish real estate through his two companies, Roro Trading Company and Albina Properties, based in Marbella. In the meantime, Samir smuggled tons of cocaine through ports like Antwerp and Rotterdam without getting caught. He maintained extensive contact with his South American networks and bought his merchandise at great prices. Some anonymous people wrote to crime site ANL saying he brought in cargo through any port, whether it was in the Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, or even England. Samir Bouyakhrichan's group even rivaled the Ndrangheta. These same people said they recognized Scarface's shipments with stamps like AK, Mitsubishi, and Vuitton. This was concrete proof that Samir was real big player, because only those at the top were allowed to have their own logo on the blocks of coke they sold. The first serious problems occurred on July 14, 2010. At 11 o'clock in the evening, in the Gubbels family's trailer on Rijnauwenstraat in Breda, John Gubbels was already asleep. His 12-year-old son, Danny, sat with his mother at the kitchen table playing a computer game. A van abruptly halted in front of the house. 7 men exited, with most of them armed. One of the men advanced towards the trailer, appearing to ring the bell before forcefully pounding and kicking the front door. While he was doing that, one of the men aimed his weapon at the house and pulled the trigger. Then the other men started shooting too. The violence only lasted a few seconds. The wooden walls of the trailer couldn't withstand the bullets from the riot guns and Kalashnikov rifles the men had. When the van sped away, the men hadn't been there for even 2 minutes. Inside the trailer, young Danny Gubbels was hit by one of the bullets. Even though his mother shouted for him to lie down, he stood up when the bell rang. One of the bullets from an AK-47 fatally wounded him. He died an hour later in the hospital. You might be asking, but why was a 12-year-old boy shot dead, and what had Samir to do with this? The police had information that, for years, Father John had been running a drug line to Italy, supplying cocaine and hash. The Criminal Intelligence Unit received an update on the case a few months later that shed light on the background of the fatal shooting. According to the informant, the trigger for the shooting was the theft of a shipment of 400 kilos of cocaine that belonged to some Moroccans from Amsterdam, including Scarface. John Gubbels was responsible for the transport of this shipment, so when the drugs were missing, he was held accountable. The loss of the shipment was about 17 million euros. As an advance on the damages suffered, John Gubbels paid 2 million euros to Samir's group. Arrangements were also made on how to resolve the problem, but according to the information, Gubbels did either not fulfill these agreements or Samir wasn't satisfied, but in any case, a message had to be sent. It was never the intention to have the son of John killed, but this incident had many consequences. Many big guys blame Samir for the death of Danny. Why would someone like him who brings in such volumes have an innocent boy shot for 400 kilos, even if that wasn't the intention? From then on, a number of people didn't want to work with him anymore. Later, more problems occurred when a seizure of 1,200 kilos of cocaine happened on June 8, 2011 in Southampton, intended for Samir Bouyakhrichan's gang, one of the main suppliers to British gangs. English criminals often ordered the drugs from Amsterdam, especially cocaine, marijuana, and synthetic drugs. Also, a customs officer named Tim Dealin from the port of Antwerp was accused of collaborating with Samir Bouyakhrichan. Around 2010, 2 large shipments of around 8,000 kilos of cocaine, one from Colombia and another on from Peru, were seized. It later turned out both were intended for Bouyakhrichan's gang. Despite the risks, Samir Bouyakhrichan roamed the streets of Spain freely. In the meantime, he was arrested in Barcelona and brought back to the Netherlands for questioning regarding the murder of Danny Gubbels, the 12-year-old son of John Gubbels, in 2010. But lacking evidence, he was eventually released again and returned to Spain. In October 2012, the pivotal moment arrived when Najib Boubou was assassinated in Antwerp. This hit had profound implications in Dutch criminal history. While Scarface's group likely had no involvement in the incident, there were rumors linking Scarface to potential financing of the stolen cocaine batch. However, this speculation didn't hold much weight. The 200-kilo batch had been funded by smaller investors from Amsterdam, mere crumbs for someone like Scarface, who could execute such ventures independently. Nevertheless, Scarface couldn't evade the repercussions of Boubou's murder and the ensuing chain reaction. Najib's death dealt a severe blow to Gwinnett Martha, who not only lost a close friend, but also a trusted associate. Everything might have remained manageable if Gwinnett had retained control over his group. However, things took a turn for the worse. A few weeks after Najib's murder, Gwinnett was arrested on suspicion of plotting an attack on Ben Auf A, who was believed to have ordered Najib's killing. During Gwinnett's incarceration, one of his associates, Najib Himich, also known as Ziggy, took on more responsibilities than anticipated. Ziggy, a 26-year-old with ambitions in the kickboxing world, started to assert himself, assuming Gwinnett's contacts and responsibilities. He even struck a deal with Samir, securing a substantial investment in a cocaine batch. Upon Gwinnett's release, he realized that Ziggy had risen in prominence and aligned himself with Scarface's group. Ziggy, now with his own network and aspirations, distanced himself from Gwinnett. He found himself torn between loyalty to Scarface and his previous allegiance to Gwinnett. Scarface, sensing Ziggy's wavering loyalty, grew suspicious and paranoid. The situation escalated, leading to speculation that Ziggy may have played a role in Gwinnett's subsequent assassination in May 2014. With Gwinnett out of the picture, it seemed like Scarface and Ziggy could continue their collaboration unhindered. However, trust had eroded, not only between Scarface and Ziggy, but also within Scarface's own group. Ziggy's betrayal of Gwinnett marked him as a traitor, leaving lingering doubts and tensions among those around him. It's just after midnight on August 29, 2014, in Benahavas, Spain, when Samir Bouyakhrichan, accompanied by Naouf Al-Fassi and Najib Himich, is on the terrace of a café called All in One. They are enjoying drinks and food, seemingly having a good time. Little does Samir know, it's all a setup. His supposed friends already know what's about to unfold that night. At 10 minutes to 2 in the morning, two armed men storm onto the terrace. Najib Himich puts his arm around Samir, but Samir senses something is wrong and tries to flee. Unfortunately, it's too late. He's shot multiple times in the back and head, dying instantly. Surveillance footage later reveals that Samir's companions didn't appear surprised by the attack, nor did they call for help. It's a betrayal orchestrated by the very people he trusted. The exact motive behind Samir's murder remains unclear. Speculation abounds, with some suggesting a conflict with the Kinahan clan, his alleged allies. Others theorize that Samir sought to seize control of the entire drug trade in the region, facing opposition from certain individuals. Dutch authorities even consider it a retaliatory act orchestrated by the group of Gwinnett Martha, who was murdered a few months prior. And what had Naoufal and Ziggy to do with it? Share your opinions in the comments section, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching.